Hello everyone, Corey back here to go over the final trades and holdings for the week. Just a reminder that I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice and is for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, so I know we have a lot of new people and stuff, so you may or may not have seen some of my other videos, or even how we normally do the daily or weekly roundup videos. And then now we have our new daily roundup videos as well, if you're just wanting a quick summary and not wanting to look at the in-depth trades and holdings. So if you don't really care about looking at this in-depth stuff with the strike prices and the calls and the puts and looking at all the holdings, in detail, then you would want to watch the daily roundup. And then, of course, at the end of the week, the weekly roundup. But in this video, we will go over all the trades and the holdings. And ULTY is fairly new, so we're still trying to work out the kinks with this one. And also, things have been changing as we've been going through this the last 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks, so but anyway, so we're going to get started. So we're going to actually, as you can see, we're going to go through all of the trades, which it wasn't many, because they're all closed, right? If they were just ads or news, we would have just went over them when we went over the holdings. But, so I'm going to scroll over to the left here. You can see on the left-hand side that these are the actual total amounts of the trades. So for CleanSpark, they did 3 trades and they brought in $42,600. Carvana, 3 trades bringing in $191,000, and then Symbotic brought in almost $211,000 there. And then so that's the total of the trades for each one of those. And if we go to the right, we can see we have the short call and the synthetic positions for both of them. So these all expired this Friday. So these were ones that, let's see where they actually closed them out at. Oh, got a big column right here. Let's make these a little smaller. All right. Well, I guess this is really where I need to make them smaller, huh? All right. We're going to... I'm looking at, and I don't have it in this workbook. So, oh yeah, yes I do here. So if we look at the first one, we have CleanSpark short call. The stock actually closed at $19.52, which you can see here. But our strike price was $18.50. And for our short calls, we want the strike price. We want the stock to stay below our strike price. And in this case, we went above it $1.02. It looks like we ended up having to pay $1.03 to close those out. And then the trend that has happened, of course, I didn't know this before when I talked to Jay to see if this always happens, but in what I've noticed, the trend was if they paid to close a short call out, they also close out the synthetics that go with it. So you have that one that was closed out. So then the next 2 lines are just the synthetics. They didn't expire until next month, about almost a month away there. But in this case, so the strike price for your synthetics, it was $18, and you want the stock to stay above the price of your synthetic, or the strike price of the synthetic. So in this case, it did. It's up $1.52, right? So so that was good. So when you actually add these two together over here for your synthetic, because it was above the strike price, they ended up making $130,000. Of course, since they had to pay money to close the short call out, that offset the cost of those, but then they still ended up bringing some money in on that. So that's how the rest of the 3 of these will work. So if we go down to Carvana, you can see that short call expired Friday. The strike price was $85. the stock closed at $85.94. It looks like based on looking at the price on the right that they closed it out and had to pay $1.83 a share. That makes me, excuse me, I expect that means that they had closed this out earlier before, and maybe the stock price dropped after they closed it out. And I didn't think about it, but I could look that up. I know some of these we've seen where they close it out and then it actually goes down, or probably makes it where they wouldn't even have had to pay money. I'm not sure at what point of the day they make that decision. But, and I just looked up Clean Spark instead of Carvana. So, now I can't spell Carvana. Carvana, I could have just put in the ticker, huh? So, oh, okay. So they ended up paying $1.83, so that would have been roughly 86 something. Yeah, so it was, the stock was up when it opened, then it went down in the 84s, and then later on, around 2 o'clock, it got up to about $87. So either sometime, I guess, right before that or right after that, they ended up, I'm going to assume before, but they ended up closing that out. And then, of course, it dropped down at the end of the day. But, yeah, so that's why those don't, those are off right there. But the same thing, right? It costs, $35,000 to close it. But because on the synthetic strike price was $75, and they closed 15%, sorry about that, they closed, well, it's almost more around 14.5%, but they closed almost $11 more, right? So that's a positive thing. So they ended up bringing in $226,000. So then that's where we get our total on the left-hand side of the 191. And then we go to Symbotic. So their short call, of course, like I said, same as all of these. It expired now, technically yesterday, but for me, but it's Friday. The strike price is 47. The stock actually closed at 47.08. So at the end of the day, if they would have just let it go, they would have paid 8 cents a share. But in this case, they closed it out when they were at 42 cents a share. So they ended up paying $13,700 to close that out. But again, if we look at our I can't even think, our synthetic here, our strike price was 40. We were $7-ish above that, so they ended up making money on that, 224,000. So that just offset the cost of closing the other out. And the only reason, just to note, the only reason that I have this colored, which actually you'll see on the holdings, but this is what's actually on the trades file, but that is wrong. Let's see. I don't remember. Well, I guess I did color this, but you see here, if you look, it has 24/04/12, so that says the expiration date, but they did not have a synthetic or any synthetics that close on April 12th. It's actually supposed to be April 19th. So what happens is, this has happened before, but sometimes it was hard to tell what was right and what was wrong. But I know this, anyway, you can tell that this is wrong. And what happens is when a typo like this happens, it can mess up the holdings. Because it's like, it has to cancel each other out, right? The buying and selling of the same strike with the same expiration. So if for some reason one of those is wrong, then they can't cancel each other out. So then they both end up being on the holdings. But they will fix it. It will probably, in fact, it almost always is fixed the next morning. Sorry, I do have me a cup of coffee here to get me through the next 2 or 3 hours of these videos and uploads. So anyway, so that's just why this is red. Not necessarily for you to worry about, but you'll see it red on the holdings as well. But it's not actually a valid line. Oh, I did not mean to close that. All right. So we're going to move on to the holdings. Oh, and of course I just closed out of it. And now it all has to... Oh, yeah. And I forgot to... And I closed out of it on my computer, so that's awesome. I thought I had copied and pasted everything to value so there wouldn't be formulas. And apparently I forgot to do the holdings for today. I did everything but the ULTY holdings. So, and since I just closed out of it accidentally, yeah, it wants to take time to load. And that sucks, because now I don't know how long it will take for it to load back up there. So I did do the first dry run today of, we're waiting on that to load back up, this. So I did do the first dry run of a daily roll-up versus our weekly roll-up. And just like I did for the Yieldmax ones. And I think this is what I did earlier, and then somebody requested me to change the colors. So here on the change column, I've changed those to the same thing that we use on the, the same thing that's on the holdings tab. In fact, I'm looking here. It's fine, working fine on the holdings tab, but not the formatted tab that I had set up. So let me do this. Since it's loading, it loaded on this page, I'm just going to copy and paste this data over. And that way it will. And I'll paste values so we don't have to worry about things loading. I'm sorry about that. Give me just a second. Otherwise, I'll just stop the video and I will start all over again. Let's see. Not the one I want. Good thing I had my computer open though. And there we go. Well, I have this open. I guess the only thing that sucks about that is, well, you know what? Let me copy it a different way, because I have to do a little bit of formatting when I do these things. Well, look at that. All I did was click undo to repaste it, because I was going to not paste over my last columns that I had already formatted, and it magically everything, all the formula stuff appeared back. So just in case I accidentally click out of it again, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste values. Therefore, we don't have to worry about if a formula decides to not work again. So sorry about that. Thank you for bearing with me. So, all right. So we don't have any trades, so we don't have to worry about the left side over there to go over. And I know somebody asked last night, and so I did have previously up here the top P and B, the trades and per share, and I've had to remove it. I think yesterday's video actually deleted the header, so But due to us swapping this week to actually holding some of the underlying, this and that being the total dollar amount for the trades versus just the short calls, it made it look it was erroneous. So the data was actually erroneous. So I need to change some things there, along with our summary sheet for the week for our weekly roundup this weekend. I've been messing with it and tinkering with it on and off, and everything. I did it a little bit at lunch today. But yeah, so the goal is to have the data here, right? But then we also do the weekly roundup where we will show a little bit more detail. But I will get that fixed. And then, of course, this is a new ETF, right? It's paid one distribution, which wasn't necessarily what the fund has earned, or had earned, or has earned. So, but give me some time this weekend. I'm gonna go through and do a few more changes, and then we'll do a weekly roundup, and we'll see about where we stand. But anyway, sorry. So I feel like I don't feel like, I know I'm rambling now. So let's go ahead and get through this. And I will say, before we go through this, and if you just want to use this as this is how this is normally done, that's great. But so on Fridays, they did it like 1 week, but the last 2 weeks, and I think this is the way it's going to be going forward based on something Jay had said. But like I said, if they had to pay to close out a position, they're also closing out, a short call, they're also closing out the synthetic. Therefore, if the synthetic, sorry, can't get my words out, all these S's we have, if the short call expired worthless, then they still have the synthetics on here. I think there was maybe a few times that they might have closed the synthetics out, but I'd have to actually go back and look. I don't know for sure off the top of my head. And in this case, where this week was actually the first time that they've done a short call with an expiration out in a month. They'd been doing them just weekly. So as you can see here, because this short call hasn't expired yet, those synthetics are still there. And the other new thing that we had this week is that they're starting to transition over to holding the underlying. So we have lots of changes going on. And like I said, this is a new fund, not to mention they're starting to change their strategies and things just a little bit. And yes, I understand that it, in the prospectus, it says they can do these things, and that's fine. The problem is when I'm tracking them, that's not how the workbook was set up to track. So as they change, I have to change. And sometimes, as you know, I have a full-time job, and I have a part-time job, and then I have this volunteer unpaid job here that I've gotten myself into. So sometimes it takes me a little time to make changes. But, okay, so we're going to just get through this, and then we might look at the summary page just a little bit. We'll see. I don't remember if I've made changes on that tab today or not, or even if I formatted it because I was working on the weekly stuff. But we'll try to make the rest of this a little shorter, and I apologize for talking so much on this video. I know the videos can get long, especially when I can't just get to the point and just get you the data out, right? So I apologize. But let's go. So we have ARM, we have the synthetic left, and so now let's say that I think last week what I did, and I did not do it this week, is I told you all the ones that expired worthless. And in fact, I should be able to tell you that off the top of my head. I will bring up yesterday's holdings. So, yeah. So that way I can compare both of them as we go. And then I just realized I have my iPad upside down, but it'd be okay. All right, so we have ARM, and it did have a short call, so it actually expired worthless. And the strike price for a synthetic is $135. We're 1% below that, but we got a month. And let's see, the we ended up being up 55 cents. 0%, but 55 cents. And let's go on to ATXS, which is a therapeutics company. So this one we still have the short call for. So we have a short call on our synthetics that expire next month. And we need to, based on our strikes here, we need to be between the $15 and the $17.50 range for our short call and synthetic. And right now we are at $15.13. So we're looking good right there. We're 14% below the strike price for a short call. So that looks good. And this stock actually dropped 5% today. If we move on to Chewy, so Chewy had a short call with a strike price of 19, and as you can see, we closed at 16.62, so that one expired worthless. We still have our synthetics. We are slightly below that, but we have a month. And then, and just in case you're new, sometimes I usually don't read the number of contracts or the shares. Last night I did for some reason. I can always read them if y'all would like for me to. I just normally don't, just for no reason other than time. But I can always read them. Just let me know. And Chewy actually went up 4% today. And you know what? I was babbling a while ago, and I don't know if I ever got around to the point, is that they will do their game plan on Monday for the week, and then that's when they'll buy their short calls and stuff. So that's why a lot of these you'll just see the synthetics for now, because they'll do game plan Monday. The next line is coin. So this is actually us holding the shares themselves. So they have 6,100 shares. And of course it closed at $2.55 today, so the market value is the value of the shares times the close price there. And so coin was down 2% today. If we go to D-Local, D-Local has its synthetics and short calls that expire next month with strike prices $18 to $19. So for our short call, we are under it by 19%, so that's good for a short call, but not so good for the synthetic because we're 15% under the strike price of $18 because we're currently at $15.30. So you can see when we look at something like this, and I do apologize for those that do watch these videos or understand what this is, but sometimes we have new people, so I like to show an example at least once when we go through these things. But you can see here where this synthetic is 15%, the strike price is 15% under, the stock price is 15% under the strike price. And the synthetic, these two lines here, just so happens that those both be 10 cents. But anyway, this will cost about $220,000 to close that out because it's so far below the strike price. So that's why we want to keep it in between. So in this case, we would have wanted it to be between 18 and 19 optimally. But anyway, we go over to the right and we can see that this stock dropped 2% today. And then we go to GigaCloud Technology. And both the short call and synthetic close next month. We have our strike prices between, we have 30 and 40. And our stock price is currently $26.91. So as I just explained before, this is great for a short call because we're 33% below the strike price. However, not so great for our synthetic because we're 10% below the strike price for the synthetics. So if we go over to the right, you can see that it would cost us if we added those two together, $100,000 to close those out. And actually yesterday we closed at $30.47. And then today we ended up dropping 12%, but We actually dropped in the stock market was in the red today, so we'll see how it goes. Okay. Sorry, I was scrolling on my computer so I could catch up here. So then we have GameStop. So GameStop's short call expired today. The strike price was $15, and as you can see, the stock price is $13.10. So it expired worthless, and we're currently 6% below the synthetic price, which is 90 cents. But that 90 cents, if we did this over here, you can see that would still cost us about $80,000 to close that out. And it looks like overall we were down 4% for GameStop. And then if we move on down to Hood, so we have Robinhood here, and this is owning the underlying, so we own 81,800 actual shares. And then if we go over to the right, we were down 4% today, and so Hood, and I failed to go over this at the top. Who else we had? So we had Coin up above. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have that price up in front of me. Sorry. Hold on. Let me look at Hood. So Hood, the strike price was $19, and you can see we closed below 19 there. And just to go back just to give you an idea of where we closed at, obviously you know they closed worthless if we didn't pay to close it out on the other tab. But on Coin here, looking, we closed at 255.51. And our strike price was $257.50. So I know it's $2, but it's still a lot when you're talking about something that moves as much as it does. So that actually it worked out great for us. All right, so let's move back down. Sorry, I forgot about that. Okay, so then we have Mind Medicine. So we have our synthetic and our short calls that expire next month. So our strike prices are $9 and $11, and we're actually perfect in between those, right? Where strike price is at $9.78, so we fall between the two. So that's why we have the green positive numbers over here, even though, if you're actually looking at it, we're 11% below the $11, but that's good. So that's why it's a positive number, so it will format to green. And then we have the $9. It's 9% above the strike price for the synthetic. But just so you want both of those to show green on this spreadsheet, I guess, to sum that up. So if we go over here to the right, it shows it went up 2 cents today. If we add those together, it would actually be a positive 23,000. Of course, we still have a month. It's looking good. And then we have the MSOS. And this one I didn't understand, so let me look. So we actually closed, I don't know what I did here. We closed down 1% on this today, but I know that I heard CGC was running today, and I mean, meaning it was up. So MSOS is a cannabis ETF stock, and CGC is a canopy growth, is what it's called, CGC, but it's a cannabis stock. So usually, when cannabis runs, just sort of like Bitcoin stuff runs, right? Most of the Bitcoin things go up. Well, same thing with cannabis. For some reason, MSOS did not go up. As you saw, it closed down, but CGC closed up 69%. I didn't look myself, but I heard them say that it was due to getting partially legalized in Germany, cannabis, that is. I don't know what the partially meant, if it was medical or what, but that was what was said to reason that it was taking off. So, not sure why this ETF itself didn't go off, and that may be more information that y'all even want to know. Just thought I'd mention it because I did hear and see that happening today. But anyway, in this case, the MSOS short call that expired on Friday had a strike price of $10, and this closed at 9.62. Therefore, it expired worthless, and our synthetics actually still looking good because it's above our strike price for the synthetics. So it has that positive, the positive 7% there. So if they wanted to close this out, they could have closed it out and still got 103,000. But I guess they'll see what they want to do on Monday. So for this account, if you've not seen these before, if you're new to the channel and watching these trades, on the Yieldmax, which I'll do that video next, the Yieldmax single stock, named ETFs, those are usually heavily traded on Thursday and Friday ahead of those the weekly calls being closed out. And then in the instance of for ULTY, the majority of our stuff is done, let's see, well, usually not on Fridays. There's usually some. I would say maybe Thursday, but definitely Monday. I guess I should go back and look to see. Historically, of course, it's only been a few weeks, right? It's only been 3. But, Friday, most of the things expire. So you only have transactions if they had to pay to close things out, and then they close the synthetic. But if they're doing their game plan on Monday, that's when they're placing all their initial trades. So yeah, now it makes me want to go back and look to see if there is between that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it might not be consistent. It might not be a true plan. It might just be based on the stock market. But anyway, obviously on those days, Monday will be, for ULTY, Monday is probably the longest video based on all the trades, because they're possibly closing out a bunch of synthetics they had from the previous week, and then they're opening up all the new positions that they want for this week. Unlike the single stock ones, they have to close out of all their positions. They can't expire worthless, and so they do those on Thursday and Friday. It just depends on how the market's going. So I will say tonight's video this morning's video for the single stock ETFs, I have not looked at how many trades there are, but there's probably about 100. I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, but there is a lot. So that will be a long video, but we'll be covering, 20 or so ETFs at the same time versus this one. Yes, I know. So let's get on with it. I'm sorry, I always have stuff and I always want to put stuff out. But then I also, at the same time, know that I can't put everything out every night. But then I try to touch on things for people that might be new. So it's just hard to find that balance of, of how to do it. And we don't have these spreadsheets sort of, 100% or at least 90% in place to do a video that goes through every single detail just yet. Because we're still making lots of changes, especially for this one. All right, anyway, I know. Here we go. MicroStrategy. This one we actually own, or ULTY actually owns. They had a short call that expired on Friday with a strike price of $1,635. So this worked out perfect. We actually it expired worthless since we were $100 below that. But you see we still have the 800 shares there, and you can see that it was down 5% today. If we move on to NanoX Imaging, we have the short call in the synthetics that expire next month. We want our price range, our stock price, to remain between 10 and 12.50. We are actually at 9.47. So our short call looks good because we are 24% below that. So we're not close to going over. However, for our synthetics, where we want it to be over, our strike price is actually below it by 53 cents, which is 5%. So right now, the market, it looks like negative 165,000 right now for those. If we were just looking at the synthetic, which is really all we should look at this second, the synthetic is negative 100,000. Sorry, the way they sort these and they come out, and I don't resort them unless I have to or really want to, which is usually on the trade side. Because for some reason they sort the ULTY trades differently than they do the other stuff. So, but anyway, if we go over, we are down 8% on the NanoX imaging today. So yesterday we actually closed at 1024. But again, today was a red market day. So if we move on to NVIDIA, we actually own the underlying stock for NVIDIA. And it had a short call with a strike price of $955. So that was a close one there. I say close because we know how these things are, right? Heck, if we look right here yesterday, NVIDIA closed at $914.35. So it jumped up 3% today, about roughly $30. And we're about, $12 or $13 from that. So anyway, that expired worthless. And then we have PDD. So we only have synthetics here, which means we had a short call that expired worthless. Its strike price was at $142, and we closed at $122.99. So that was great for that. Of course, we have the synthetic that expires in a month that we are currently 5% under there. But the stock actually went up 1% today, which is roughly 69 cents there. If we move on to Root, we have our short call and synthetics that close next month, and we want our price to be between $60 and $70. However, we are at $53.76 there. So we're looking good on the short call. We're 23% below that, but we are 10% below the strike price for the synthetics. If we had to close the synthetics out right now, we're looking at roughly 170,000. And it looks like the stock ended up closing up 4% today. If we move on to SMCI, we have the synthetics showing here, which they actually look good. We're 17% above there. But, okay, our short call that we had that expired on Friday had a strike price of $1,060. So we were almost 100 below that. So that's why that one expired worthless. We have 14 contracts there. And it looks like it only went up about $1 today. And then we have SoundHound that just keeps tanking and tanking the last couple of days. All the gains has been lost. Anyway, so we have the synthetics here, and the short call that we had a strike price of $8.50. So of course it expired worthless. The stock price today is closed at $6.14. So it's bad for our synthetic here because we are 23% below the strike price. So if we had to close that out today, it would have cost $325,000 to close that out. And then here on the bottom, Symbotic, this is the one I was telling you about. So if you see these last two is the actual synthetics we had, but, sorry, I'm going to scroll over so you can see these are the ones we actually had here. But they entered in this, which has a different date on it. So since it didn't have the exact same date, it didn't cancel each other out. So I guess what I should do, well, it's included, but I should delete it so it's not included here. But yeah, it's going to be included anyway. But it's not, it'll be fixed Monday morning. I'm like 95% sure they will fix it Monday morning. I don't think there's been once that they did not fix it the next morning. So, anyway, so we have that, and I know this has been extremely long. Let's see what we have on our summary here. So summary here. I'm like, did I move? I might have moved some things around because I see that. No, I guess once I did that, it fixed. Because we closed some of them out, so we had some extra lines down there. We'll just quickly look at this. We'll go over more this weekend. But if you haven't seen this before, of course, these are all of the stocks on the current holdings tab, the market value, and the weightings for those. And then we have our I didn't start this till later, and actually I did figure out how to go back and get the historical IV of something. Like 95% sure I started actually looking up a few today, and I was like, I don't have time for this, but at least I knew how to do it. I know how to do it now. But anyway, so later I started doing the initial IVs just for comparison purposes, so we could see where we were when we started and when we were where we're at now. I'll just have to go back and figure out when we started doing these and put the initial IVs in. But this is our current IV. If you haven't seen it, of course, these are updated since earlier today. At least I say that because that says 202% now on the healthcare, and I'm pretty sure earlier today it was below 200, but yeah, it's already updated now. But we have, if we look just at IV, I mean, I remember when we were talking about Coney a while back being crazy, being at 80 something, and this therapeutics one here is at 200. It's at 202%. But, so that's number one. Where we at? Or number two, we don't have any hidden lines. Do we have something that's exactly the same? Now I'm like G5, so we did start G5. Alright. That's why I don't like. And sometimes, usually it only skips numbers if I have something hidden or something. Or I have something cleared out, but cash is at the top. But now that I look at this, and I didn't realize this earlier. Let me look at the holdings. I don't know how I missed this earlier, but the money market account is no longer there. Usually that money market account's right there in the middle of those. But anyway, let's look real quick. So what's our lowest IV? We're at 18. We were at 20 tickers. Oh, so yeah, it just skipped a number because we only have 14. I mean, we only have 17 tickers, but we have, I see 18 here. So it just skipped number 2 for some reason. But PDD, 41%. Interesting. All right. And we have our market value here. And that's what this is actually sorted by. It's actually sorted by the market value itself. Of course, then in column J, it's the market value ranking. And I still need to, maybe I won't have to think too hard about this. If they could just go ahead and make all of them go to holding the underlying stock for all of them and no synthetics, because that's what's making this off right now, which is what I'm trying to adjust the weekly roundup on to change things up a little bit since we're holding. But on these 4 right here, the reason these are so high and they're having a high ranking, market value ranking, is because they're holding the underlying stock, right, versus holding a synthetic position. So it just throws it off some. So it's hard to really compare one to the other. But if we can look here, if we don't if we don't pay any attention to those, the only other three that are actually positive is the SMCI, MSOS, and MindMed. But of course, at the same time, we know most of these are just synthetics, because most of these expired out. But all of that will be adjusted on Monday when they make their game plan for the week. Let's see if we go down here to the biggest losers on the bottom, which is the therapeutics company, which just so also happens to have the highest ranking IV. But then we have D Local that has next to the lowest IV, but it's also next to the lowest on the market value too. So you never know, right? And then we have Root there on the bottom. So you're looking at a negative 200 to a negative 261,000 between those three. But anyway, so we'll move on over here. So we went through this a little bit last night. I did just have the sector itself on here. We discussed a little bit about the industry and the 25% and the 1940 Act, but I don't know if y'all want to see the sector, just the sector how we had it before, which would basically just be 5 lines. I can't edit pivots on the iPad, but it basically looked like that. It didn't have the industry column. But if you actually want to see the industries that these are in, then I can leave those on there like that. But then you can see the market value and the weightings per the holdings that we have. And then over here we have our net assets. So I guess I did not copy and paste yesterday's on here. Or I did and it didn't save, because that seems to happen a lot with Google Sheets. It's really irritating, especially when you have to do double work. But you can see the outstanding shares for these have not changed for days. And I'm going to guess it's because of the price just keeps going down on ULTY. I mean, let's just, right? Let's face it. We're all watching this one closely, right? It's brand new, and this is where I had it on the daily sheet. So today we closed at 1794, and I didn't think about it, but I went all the way zoomed in. Yeah, I was zoomed in there. Okay, 1794 is where we closed today, and this has only been out for 3 weeks, and we've dropped $2 and something. And I know it hasn't helped a lot of people. It hasn't helped, and a lot of people see how the violent swings it has. But the thing is, it's doing that because of the high volatility. So it's going to do it. I mean, that's the point of this ticker. So if, it's one of those things, if you couldn't handle the swings of Coney, which was half the volatility of, even this highest one, this is 202%, right? And if Coney's, hell, you got 202 there, and then you have Coin right below it, right here at 86%. I mean, if you can't handle Coney, you're not going to be able to handle this, right? Same thing with Misty and its violent swings. When it's good, but when it's bad, right? And I have a feeling, it's going to be the same thing with this one, with the being such high volatility. I don't know, starting at a $20 strike price with this one, I don't know how well that's going to go for it with those violent swings, and then actually having to pay distributions out. Hopefully, as we go along, though, this will start doing better, right? Got to get in the groove of doing everything, and I'm going to make sure I save my trades. I just realized it was after midnight. At midnight, they disappear. But yeah, and I know I've had people ask, and honestly, I try to be unbiased when I look at these, and I try to give the facts out so you can make the decision on your own. Of course, this one we're still working with, right? We're still trying to get the summary, and then we're going to adjust the weekly roundup, do some adjustments based on the changes of now starting to hold the underlying stocks. We just still have a lot of moving parts here. And but we'll look at it this weekend once I do some adjustments, and we'll look at how much money has been made since inception in the short calls and in the synthetics, and then we'll also now have a stock column. So we have all these S's, and then we'll capture all of those and look at them. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to capture them, and I may not have the best way yet, but I will have a way, so at least you can see what's going on, because I'm just giving you the information that I have and what I've pulled. Of course, in this case, we do not have the first day of trades. So that does put us a little bit out of a disadvantage. So our numbers obviously aren't going to be 100% accurate. But anyway, just look for that video this weekend for ULTY. We'll do the weekly roundup, and then we'll also do the Yieldmax single stock for all of those looking for where we stand, overall, how we did. If we look at all of the week's trades, and we look at all of the days of this week plus all of the weeks together to see where we stand for all of the Yieldmax ETFs. So I'll get both of those out. But first, I've got to do the end of day Friday video for the single stock ETFs. So I'm sorry for the long video and lots of talking throughout this video. Hopefully y'all were able to find something beneficial from this and the next few upcoming videos. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.